a beautiful fall day here in New England. The sun is shining, it's cold, crisp, there's leaves on the ground. That can only mean one thing: it's cyclocross season. I'm Adam Myerson, inviting you to join me for CycleSmart's Solutions for Cyclocross. So again, welcome, and thank you for tuning in to CycleSmart's Solutions for Cyclocross DVD. If you're here with us today, it's because you share our passion and excitement for the sport of cyclocross. At CycleSmart, it's something that's a first priority for us, and we want to share our excitement for the sport with you. We've done that in the past by providing camps, clinics, and seminars focusing on cyclocross in various cities around the country. We know that not everybody can attend these camps and clinics, and we wanted to find a way to bring our expertise and information to people wherever they might be. So that's the impetus for putting this DVD together, and we hope that you'll enjoy what you find here today. The way we're going to do that is by focusing on 4 specific skills: mounting, dismounting, lifting the bike, and also carrying the bike. At the end of the DVD, we're going to show you how to put all those things together in a racing situation, but also illustrate all of those skills with coverage from the 2003 Verge New England Championship Cyclocross Series. So you can see firsthand how the pro riders solve a lot of the same problems you'll be faced with out there on the trail. So again, welcome, thank you, and I'm sure you'll find in this DVD real solutions for cyclocross. What we're going to start with is perhaps what is the most difficult aspect of cyclocross for most people, and that is remounting the bike. It makes sense to start here because if you can learn how to mount the bike properly, it'll open up all the other areas of technique to you and get the hard stuff out of the way first. What I'd like to start with are 2 of what I think are the most common mistakes in mounting, and that is the stutter step, where a rider perhaps plants the left foot as they try to remount the bike, and then the Superman, or sort of over jumping onto the bike as a way to get on quickly. So we'll show you those first, and then we'll show you the right way to step right onto that bike. So the first common mistake that we want to try to correct today is the stutter step on the remount. And what happens here typically is a rider is attempting to jump onto the saddle, gets a little bit nervous and is afraid to commit, and uses their left foot to break their fall. When they do this, it looks something like this. So if you're a beginner cyclocross rider, you're probably watching me do the stutter step and think, that's exactly what I look like. I bet it looks familiar to you. The reason why you want to avoid that is because when you plant that left foot, you're essentially putting the brakes on. In cyclocross, you want all your momentum to be going forward. All your energy should be going forward at all times. When you plant your left foot like that, you're slowing things down, you're putting the brakes on, and you're postponing the amount of time before you can start pedaling the bike again. The second most common mistake that riders make when they're learning how to remount the bicycle is what I consider an overcompensation. They finally learned how to jump onto the bike, but they sort of jump over the bike and put too much into it. I describe this as a Superman position because it leaves the feet trailing behind the rider when the rider jumps on the bike and postpones the time where they can begin to actually pedal again. I'm going to demonstrate that bad technique for you and then show you how to correct that. What you should notice with the Superman technique is that the feet tend to trail behind after you land on the bike. There's 2 mistakes there. One is the overjumping and the actual landing on the bike. That's energy that's going down rather than going forward. Secondarily, your feet tend to be trailing behind you, which means it takes a few more seconds to bring them up to the pedals and begin pedaling quickly. It's a solution, but it's not the best one. So now we've shown you 2 of the common problems when it comes to remounting the bike. What I really want to show you, obviously, is the solution. To show you proper remount technique, I want to show it at a walking pace first before we get you to do it at a race pace. I want to emphasize the feeling of merging and stepping onto the bicycle first, rather than haphazardly just trying to throw yourself at it and leap onto it. You can't really learn the skill properly if you're trying to do it in a rushed, haphazard way. By slowing it down, we'll show you each step. One of the most important things in this process is remembering that, again, you're not jumping onto the bicycle. We want to teach you how to merge with the bicycle. The way that goes is walking pace, off of the left foot. The first thing that makes contact is the inside of your right thigh on the saddle. But you can't pause there and land on the bicycle. The energy has to continue to move forward so that your right foot is in the position to begin pedaling as soon as possible. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you. At a walking pace, the right leg goes up, over the saddle, down onto the right pedal as one fluid motion. With this remounting technique, basically what I want you to think about is not just jumping up onto the saddle, but again, stepping up and over the saddle. And really what's most important is how quickly can you get your right foot into your right pedal. You have to keep the energy going so that you don't land and stop on the saddle, but again, like a hurdler, you step up to and over it and onto the right pedal. The drill I'm going to show you is, again, at a walking pace, how to step up, over the saddle, onto the right pedal, and merge with the bicycle. We'll show you each component again so that you can put it all together. So with this drill, basically, like I said, you want to start at a walking pace, just swinging the right leg up, over, and directly down onto the right pedal. Take a one pedal stroke, maybe two pedal strokes, and then step off, and again, just one or two steps on the ground before you get back on and repeat it. Through the repeats here, you can start to add some speed, and basically you're trying to overcome your fear of jumping back on quickly so that it becomes second nature. These are good warm-up drills or drills to do before you start a cross workout on any given day. Once you get the feel for it, again, you should be able to do it without fear and with great technique. Taking a look at some race footage here from the 2003 Verge New England Championship Cyclocross Series round at Gloucester, Todd Wells had a really distinct advantage in that he was strong enough and had good enough technique to get right back on the bike, get that right foot over the saddle onto the right pedal, and begin pedaling as quickly as possible, rather than having to run up the hill as you see Ryan Trebone having to do next to him here. This allowed him at the top of the hill to be able to sprint away and either put pressure on Trebone or gap him. Again, he's on the saddle immediately, right foot into the right pedal. The day before at Worcester, he was able to do exactly the same thing, and we're going to show you two images side by side from multiple laps where his consistency, his strength, and his good technique again allowed him to really put pressure on the other riders in the race. Some other great examples, Mark McCormick here at the Verge round in Maine. He's not thinking about jumping onto his bike, he's thinking about pedaling as soon as he can, and so his right foot goes right over onto the pedal. Jesse Anthony, same thing, pedaling the bike as soon as he possibly can to get back up to speed quickly. Mark McCormick again here at Gloucester, same thing, in the drops, but right leg over and onto the pedal so he's accelerating as quickly as he can. Fast Barrier here from Farmington, Connecticut. Again, he's not jumping, he's running onto the bike. Here's me over the same barriers, merging with the bike onto the pedals as quickly as you can. That's the main point. So we started today by showing you how to remount the bike first. That's a little bit out of order because obviously before you get back on the bike, you have to learn how to get off of it first. We wanted to get the hard stuff out of the way, but now we're going to move on to dismounting the bike properly and show you solutions for the problems you're going to be faced with there. So what I want to show you is what I consider the basic standard dismount technique that you can use at all times, in all conditions, no matter what. And what this involves is 4 steps. First, clipping out of the left pedal at the bottom of the pedal stroke and then riding on your instep. On the next pedal stroke, clipping out of the right pedal at the bottom of the pedal stroke and riding on the right instep. Then on the next pedal stroke on the left side, swinging the right leg up, off, around the back of the bike, and then just stepping off the pedal and hitting the ground running without putting your foot through between the frame, and this is very important. You're just going to swing your leg off the back of the bike and then land on your right foot as it comes back around. Because you've already clipped out of the left pedal, you can just step right off without having to worry about accidentally being clipped in and tripping when you hit the ground. So the technique here again is to clip out of the left, clip out of the right, step around the back and off the back. From the side, same thing, out of the left, out of the right, around the back and off the back. By clipping out of the left foot first, it means you're going to be able to approach the barriers at full speed, as you can see in these examples here, where riders have no fear of being accidentally clipped in and tripping over the barrier. That allows you to conserve all of your momentum, keep your energy going forward, and putting it all together in a way that's going to give you better performance every time.
One tip for always trying to make sure that when you remount the bike and you want your right pedal to be in the right position so that as you swing over you can slam down on it right away is again related to the fact that you're going to clip your left foot out of the pedal before you start any process. If you do this, rather than clipping out and forcing your cranks to spin as you get off the bike, when you simply step off, you're stepping off with the crank in this 6 and 12 position. So you step off, hit the ground running, your cranks will turn just a little bit before they stop, and lo and behold, when you go to get back on, every time your pedal is in that proper position so that you can remount and boom, slam right down on the pedal.
The second technique I'm going to show you is one that you can use in a situation where you have to continue to pedal hard right up to a barrier or a dismount. In this case, you want to try and stay clipped in so that you can apply power for as long as possible. Here, rather than clip out of the left first, you're going to stay clipped in on the left. Begin by clipping out of the right, stepping off and around the back, and then again, not putting your foot through, but swinging it around the back, and here turning your hips and opening your hips and using that motion to be able to clip out of the left pedal safely and consistently every time and hit the ground running. I'm going to show you that now. So this technique is similar as to our previous example, but what we're going to do is, because we're staying clipped in on the left, you swing the leg around, turn the hips to pop that left foot out of the pedal. This works great approaching a hill, where you want to pedal right up until the last minute. Again, you're turning the hips. You see in the race footage here, the same process. The riders are trying to stay clipped in, but no one's putting their foot through. They're all swinging their foot around so they can turn their hips and pop out of the left pedal, allowing them to carry all their momentum over the barrier.
The next dismount technique I'm going to show you is one that you really only want to use when you have a fast approach to a dismount, where you have plenty of time to coast up to the hurdle, execute the technique properly, and be set up when you get there. You don't want to be rushed when you do this, because this is when riders trip over hurdles the most often. The steps here are again to clip out of the left pedal first at the bottom of the pedal stroke and ride on your instep. Clip out of the right pedal next, again ride on your instep. Then swing the right leg around the back of the bike between your left leg and the bicycle. At that point, resting your saddle against your right hip, this is a secret tip here that no one else is going to tell you. Move your right hand from the handlebars to the top tube, and then you can hit the ground in full stride with no fear of tripping because you're accidentally or intentionally still clipped into the left pedal. I'm going to show you that technique now.
So, similar technique to what we've been doing before. You clip out of the left, out of the right leg comes around, but now it goes between you and the bike. Yost demonstrates that for us here again, around the back and through between the body and the bike. Because you clipped out of the left foot first, you can put that right foot down on the ground running here as I am, with no fear of tripping over the bike when you hit the ground. If you have a dismount situation where you can put your foot through, one of the most important things is not to still be clipped in the left pedal when you do so. This is what many riders consider their basic standard technique, and I think it's the most common mistake. What you see here is with the left foot still clipped in, I step through with my right foot. When I put my foot down and go to step off, my left foot is still clipped in. With just a little bit of mud on that pedal, or maybe a little bit of fatigue from the race, it's very easy to not be able to get out of the pedal. You find this is most often when riders are tripping themselves, whether there's a barrier there or not. By starting this process by clipping out of the left pedal first, being on the instep when you make the dismount, whether you step through or off, when you hit the ground, you're off and you can hit the ground running. Some great footage here from the Cyclocross International. You see Todd Wells on the right-hand side of your screen. We had some great examples of him doing things correctly earlier. Here he finds himself still clipped into his left pedal, tripping over the barrier at the absolute last minute. He is able to free himself and gets over it without too much damage, but this really could have been a catastrophic mistake, prevented by simply clipping out of the left pedal earlier.
There's nothing fast about laying on the ground as riders ride away from you. We want to avoid that at all costs. With this technique, the things to notice are, again, because I've clipped out of the left pedal first and I'm just resting on the instep of my left pedal, I have no fear when I step off the bike that I'm going to trip or have any difficulty. Second, it's really important to note the technique of resting the saddle on your left hip as your right foot passes by. That's what allows you the balance to be able to take your right hand off the handlebar and move it to the top tube. You still have a contact point here, and you can ride around all day with your right hand off the handlebar if you've done this step properly.
Some great Verge series footage here. Mark McCormick as he approaches the run-up. You see the saddle resting on his hip as he coasts into the barrier. This is allowing him to actually rest as he sets up for the run, allowing him to hit the run with a lot of energy. The Cliff Bar duo, Carmen and Gina here, same thing as they coast into the barrier with the saddle resting on their hip. That allows you, again, if you're clipped out of the left pedal, to put your foot through. Mary McConaughey, same technique, hits the ground running, no fear of being clipped in. Mark McCormick again does the same thing here, running over the barriers. When you're practicing dismount technique, you want to begin doing it in a situation where you're not under a lot of pressure. That means an open field, don't have any barrier yet, just focus on the technique, the steps, the timing. Then when you feel smooth and confident, introduce a barrier, try and figure out what your timing needs to be at a certain speed so that you know when to begin getting off and you can get your feet to the ground before you get to the barrier. But again, it's important to do it in that low pressure situation first before you start to put yourself in a challenging situation. In this next segment, what we're going to show you are all the different ways to pick your bike up, put it on your shoulder, and put it back down. You'd be surprised at all the different variables there are here. We're going to show you what to do when you're faced with different challenges, like whether or not you're picking the bike up for just a hurdle, running with it on your shoulder for a long run, and then how to get the bike back down on the ground quickly so that you can get back on it and get back up to speed as fast as possible. These are all different challenges. We're going to show you the best solutions for each.
The most common scenario you're probably going to find yourself in is one where you simply need to lift the bike over an obstacle and put it back on the ground. We often refer to this as suitcasing. In this case, what you're looking for is the right hand moves from the handlebars to the top tube. Where you grab the top tube is really important and is typically just in front of the nose of the saddle. What you're looking for here is that balance point, so it's easy to lift the bike. If you lift a little bit too far in front, the front wheel comes up and the bike doesn't stay level, the rear wheel hits the hurdle. So right around here, right in front of the nose of the saddle, the next step is make sure that your elbow stays between the saddle and your body, so the bike is being lifted slightly away from you. If you do that, you'll be able to lift it high enough so that, again, you're not hitting your bike on the hurdle as you go over. You'll see many riders want to keep the bike close to them, lift like this, but then the saddle is in your armpit and it limits how high you can lift the bike and increases the chances that you're going to hit your front wheel on the hurdle. If lifting this way is a little hard for you, sometimes it helps to roll the palm of your hand underneath the top tube a little bit so you can get a little bit of weight under there and hold it up firmly. For smaller riders, you might find that, again, it's challenging to lift the bike up high enough to get over the hurdle. In that case, rather than lifting by the top tube, try lifting by the down tube and then just standing up straight with it. Typically, you find for smaller riders, this helps you get the wheels off the ground high enough that you know you can get over the hurdles without hitting your bike on the hurdles. Finally, when you're putting the bike down, it's very important. Don't drop the bike. A bouncing bike means it's going to make it much more difficult or take longer for you to remount the bike, or it might increase your risk of dropping the chain. So in this case, put the bike down, lean on a little bit, make sure it's not bouncing before you put your right hand back on the handlebars, remount the bike, and sprint away. That's the solution for the most common scenario you're going to find yourself in when you just simply need to suitcase the bike over the hurdle.
Some training and racing examples here. You can see my hand goes right to the top tube. Sometimes I get my palm underneath a little bit, always keeping my elbow between my body and the bike so I can lift the bike as high as I need to. Mary McConaughey, Olympian this year, likes to pick up by the down tube. Sometimes here she's shouldering it, but she certainly could just as easily be putting it back down on the grass on the other side of this barrier. Got a nice shot here of the pack coming through. Everybody's suitcasing the bike, getting over the barriers quickly. Anna Milkowski here, getting the saddle between her and the bike and having a hard time lifting as high as she needs to. Here you see me, the bike pops right up nice and high, all my momentum going forward.
The next scenario you might find yourself in is one where you actually need to get the bike up onto your shoulder for an extended run. In this case, there are two different ways to pick the bike up, either by the top tube or by the down tube. I'm going to show you both and explain to you why each one works in different situations. Picking up by the top tube is useful if you race a lot of races where you've got muddy conditions, and a dirty down tube is something that you don't want to have to grab onto all the time, filling your hands with mud. Or if you have problems with your back and the act of bending over to pick the bike up every time leaves you a little bit sore, you might find that picking up by the top tube allows you to stand up straight and there's a little less strain on your back. In this case, what you're doing is the right hand goes to the top tube much like you did in the suitcase, but now instead of grabbing overhanded, you're turning your hand around, grabbing underhanded in exactly the same spot. From there, it's very easy. Simple lift, your elbow goes through the frame down by the crank, and then you drop it off your thumb and onto your shoulder.
So you're grabbing on the top tube, underhanded, elbow goes through the frame and onto the shoulder.
Now if you race primarily on fast, dry courses, and you don't have any problems with lower back pain, you might find that picking up by the down tube works best for you. In this case, your hand goes on the down tube right about where the water bottle bosses would be, and from there, very quickly, it's a little snap, right up, elbow goes through the frame, up by the seat, and then onto the shoulder. Again, that's the faster technique, and works really well if you're racing a lot of dry, fast courses.
Here you're grabbing by the lower part of the down tube and sliding it right up onto the shoulder.
So again, just like picking the bike up where you had two choices, once the bike's on your shoulder, you've got two choices about how to carry. Again, they're primarily based on comfort and personal preference. Once the bike's on your shoulder, the first thing you need to be concerned about is that it's positioned properly. And generally that means the wheels are going to be level, and you should find the balance point on your shoulder where you can essentially let go of the bike and it stays there. That means you haven't got the bike too far forward or too far back. You should never carry like this where the saddle's hitting you in the head, or conversely too far back where the wheel's starting to go behind you. The wheels should be level and you should find that balance point. From there, what you want to do is, again, the left hand should still be on your handlebar for stability. Your right hand is either going to go under the down tube, your elbow goes in the down tube, and then your right hand holds on the left hand side of the handlebar. Or your second choice is to unfold your arm, wrap it around your head tube, and again getting your elbow in the head tube here, much like you did with the down tube, and then holding on either the brake hood or the handlebar on the left side. Each one has its pros and cons and is primarily a matter of comfort. If you go under the down tube, this works well if you have shorter arms and you want a little bit more stability and holding onto the bike closely. If you have longer arms and you need a little bit more space to take up, going around the head tube might be a little more comfortable for you, and it opens your chest up, and I think you'll find it allows you to breathe a little bit easier on those longer runs. Again, find the technique that works best for you and stick with it.
So, option 1, picking up by the top tube, going around the head tube. Option 2, picking up by the top tube and going below the down tube. Option 3, picking up by the down tube and going around the head tube. And option 4, picking up by the down tube and going under the down tube. So putting it all together into a full dismount situation, you can see approaching this hill, I'm grabbing by the top tube and flicking it onto my shoulder, and then my preferred way to hold is around the head tube. So underhanded on the top tube, flicking it on the shoulder. You can go either way. I go around the head tube. Our next example is picking it up by the down tube, and what you can see here is Jos grabbing by the down tube onto his shoulder, and he likes to go under the down tube to hold. And like I said, these are the two carrying techniques that kind of go hand in hand. Here I pick up by the down tube, but I still go around the head tube because that's what's comfortable for me.
Once you've decided how you're going to carry the bike, the next choice you have to make is how you're going to get it back on the ground. Again, there are two major choices here, and it's partially based on what's comfortable for you, but also how you've decided to carry the bike. If you've chosen to carry the bike under the down tube like this, then you're most likely going to also put the bike down the same way. The steps here are to put your left hand onto the handlebar wherever you're comfortable, slide it off your shoulder, and your right hand goes back to the down tube, slides off, and onto the ground. You're holding it in exactly the same place that you picked it up, and this way, your right hand goes quickly from the handlebars to the down tube and onto the ground. Put a little weight on it when you put it down to make sure it's not bouncing, and you're going to be good to go.
As your hand comes off the bars, you grab the down tube and put the bike down on the ground again without dropping it.
Your second choice for getting the bike off your shoulder is one where you just flick the bike off and into your right hand and onto the ground. Most commonly you'll do this if you've chosen to carry the bike around the head tube. It makes the most sense just to drop it into your hand, catch it before it hits the ground, and then lower it. There is a risk of dropping the bike here and a little bit of bouncing, but it takes less energy just to flick it off your shoulder and into your hand and let it hit the ground.
So a few different examples of how to get it done. Flicking it into the hook of your arm and into your hand, flicking it right off into your hand and onto the ground, and then plucking it right off your shoulder without dropping it. Here we've got some Verge Series footage of riders trying to put it all together. Mark Gullickson here at the Series event in Maine picks up by the down tube onto his shoulder for this long run rather than running with the bike on the ground next to him, carries under the down tube. Here's me on that same run carrying around the head tube, trying to do what's best for each of us in each situation. Mark again by the down tube, under the down tube, onto the left side of the handlebars as he does the run up here in Gloucester. Next shot, closing here with Mark McCormick in the snow at Merrimack, same way, by the down tube, onto his shoulder.
Nice, Mark. You got about 13.
I've shown you a series of choices for picking the bike up, putting it on your shoulder, and putting it back on the ground in the way that's going to work best for you. It's important to note that you can combine a lot of these different options to really find out what's ideal. So for instance, if you pick up by the top tube, there's no reason you can't go from there and go under the down tube and then decide to put down by the down tube as well. Conversely, if you pick up by the down tube, you might find that it's most comfortable to go around the head tube, carry in this open way, and still drop the bike by the top tube and put it down that way. It's important to experiment with all these options and find the solution that solves the problem in a way that's best for you.
We're here today in Northampton, Massachusetts at the site of the CycleSmart International Cyclocross. The course is all set up for us, so we're going to take advantage of that and take a look at the double barrier we've got set up here. We've already shown you how to get off the bike, how to carry it, and how to get back on. What we want to do now is look at that in a racing situation. Figure out how many steps to take before the hurdle, and in this case, because there's a short run after the barriers, we're going to decide how many steps to take afterwards. Do we want to get right back on and ride up that hill, or is it going to be faster to run all the way to the top? With all these challenges in front of us, we're going to try and come up with the best solution for you in this situation. So we've got a fast approach to the barriers here, and we talked about the situation where you had time to set up with your position. This is where you can clip out of the left pedal first, coast on that pedal, and you'll actually have time to take your right leg, swing it around, and put it between you and the bike. Then what we got to decide is how many steps to take before the hurdle. And in this case, you're only going to need to take 2. To step off your bike, 1 step to step off your bike, and then 1 step to step over the hurdle. What you have to try and gauge is, at the speed that you're going, when do you finally step off the bike to time it just right and do it all in one quick motion. Then we've got to decide afterwards what we're going to do. Because we've got a short run, short uphill after the hurdle, you might find that you're strong enough to get back on the bike quickly, get immediately clipped in, and be able to pedal up the hill. And if you can do that, and you're strong enough, that may be the fastest way. On the other hand, if you try to get back on and you bobble, you don't get back into your pedals as quickly, you're going to end up wasting time, struggling to get up the hill, when everybody else just runs to the top, gets on the flat, and sprints away. The key here is if you're going to get right back on, you want to do it with only 4 steps after the hurdle. 2 steps to land, and then 2 steps to get right back on. If you're going to run to the top, you want to just keep running until you feel like you have enough momentum to get back on and pedal away. So in my pre-ride of the course, up to these barriers, I'm approaching with a lot of speed, putting my right foot through, hitting the barriers fast, and then trying to remount immediately after the barriers and riding to the top of the hill. This seemed to work pretty well in terms of the approach and getting over the barriers, but as you can see, I got a little bit bogged down going over the top of the hill. My second option, again approaching with a lot of speed, putting my foot through, was to run all the way to the top of the hill. Comparing the two, this seemed to be the faster way to go, even though I was remounting the bike later, you can see I'm carrying more of my momentum up the run and then getting right back on at the top. One tip to remember is you always want to make sure that you choose the gear that you're going to need on the other side of a barrier section rather than the one that you had coming into it. You might have a high-speed, fast approach where you can pedal a big gear, where maybe there's a short uphill or a muddy section or a difficult re-acceleration on the other side where you're going to need a much easier gear. Always shift right before the dismount, choose the gear you're going to need for the exit, and then you're going to have a much faster re-acceleration. Of course, race day at the Cyclosmart International was the true test. Jackson Stewart literally sprinting over the top of that run like it was flat, accelerating way at the top, pack of riders trailing behind, me included, everybody opting to roll the bike on the ground, just suitcase it, and run to the top before they remount. The women, a couple different choices here. Again, everybody opting to run to the top, but you see Carmen DeLucio in the middle opting to shoulder her bike, allowing her to perhaps run a little bit faster, more comfortably. Gully's technique, perfect. Keeps his elbow between his body and his bike every time. Even on later laps, finding himself in traffic as the last guy in the train here. Pack slowing down a little bit, but perfect technique. Elbow between the body and the bike. One lap later, the same group together. Technique still holds even as the riders fatigue. And Gully, great form there in the back of the group. So what I showed you here is an approach to a fast barrier where there's plenty of time to coast and set up before the dismount. In this case, you can actually use it as a recovery section and then get off as late as possible before the barrier. You didn't have to pedal all the way up to the last minute. I only took 2 steps before the barrier, and that was just one to step off and land on the right foot, and then one to jump over the barrier on my left foot. On the other side of the barrier, the first approach that I took is one what I would do if I had a flat dismount afterwards, and that's to remount as quickly as possible. 2 steps to land after the barrier, and then 2 steps to get back on. Now in this case, the added challenge was the slight uphill after the barrier. Getting back on quickly sometimes left me a little bit bogged down or slipping off my pedals because I didn't clip back in quickly enough. In that case, you might find that running to the top of the hill on the other side and remounting on the fast section where you have a little bit more momentum is going to be the best choice. You've got to make that choice based on how much energy you have, how steep the hill is, and how quickly you think you can get the job done. With all these options and variables in front of you, you've got to find the solution that's going to work best for you. To wrap things up, we're going to review and summarize the 4 crucial elements of cyclocross that we focused on in this DVD. That's mounting, dismounting, lifting, and carrying. By mastering these fundamentals of cyclocross first, you'll be able to maximize your performance and enjoyment of cyclocross, both in training and in racing. So, on behalf of Jos Huseby, myself, and all the Cyclosmart coaches, again, thank you for tuning in to Cyclosmart's Solutions for Cyclocross. Cyclosmart as a company, I guess, at its essence, is an extension of who we are as individuals. We love cycling. We've made it our career. We've made it our passion. It's our job. It's our volunteer work. It's our activism. And so the way we coach and the kind of coaching opportunities we provide with our camps and clinics and seminars is essentially an extension of our desire to serve and help improve the quality of cycling experience for everybody at all ability levels. So why should people come to the Cyclosmart Cyclocross camp? I think because cyclocross is basically a combination of both fitness and skill, the fitness side of it is something you can transmit that kind of information over the telephone or via email. You can give someone a training program. But the skills side of cyclocross is something that you really need to see demonstrated.
I'm Michelle Moffitt. I'm from New York City, and I'm a total beginner. I've not ever done a cross race. I've watched cross races, and I just thought this would be a good way to start out and learn skills and strategy right off the bat.
At Cyclosmart Cross Camp, we can focus on anywhere from absolute beginner skills for people who've never raced cyclocross before, all the way up to some of our advanced campers or national champions who are here to sort of refine their technique and look for mistakes and ways to improve efficiency. So it really runs the gamut, but obviously mounting, dismounting, carrying, focus on things like cornering, off-camber hillsides, practicing cross starts, things like that. So again, whether you're an absolute beginner or you're a seasoned veteran, national champion, there's plenty of coaches and a lot of expertise to go around for people of all ability levels.
On that note, I'm Meg, and this is my third season of taking cross relatively seriously. I love cross. It's my favorite thing in the whole world.
At the very least, everyone who comes to the camp will leave here a faster cyclocross rider, and someone who, as a result of which, can also get a lot more fun and enjoyment out of the cyclocross that they do.
I'm Renee Calloway, and I came from Madison, Wisconsin. And what do I want to get out of it? Well, I guess I'll be racing with the A women this year, who are much better than me. I need a lot better skills, I find, going to practice with them. And I've also had an unnatural fear of camp since my childhood, so I figured, it'd be good to get over that too by going to a camp for the first time.
I think if you talk to all the attendees of the cyclocross camp, everybody will say that they had a really good time, the food was great, and they really learned a lot and were faster when they left. Because we can't bring the camp to everybody across the country and work with everyone across the country on a one-on-one basis, we want to invite all of you to come here and spend a weekend with us and let us show you how we can help you enjoy cyclocross more.